Hello there, I'm Erin. This is Boom Bust, and these are some of the stories that we're tracking for you today. First up, Syriza's victory in Greece on Sunday is stirring the debate over austerity in Europe. So will the party's win encourage other populist movements in the region? We're going to be looking into that coming right up. Then Richard Werner is on the show today. The man who coined the term quantitative easing sat down with me to talk central banking earlier. And Marshall Arabak joined us from New York earlier as well to share his thoughts on the recent elections in Greece. And Edward Harrison will sit down with me later on in the show to discuss this as well. We've got a lot to cover, not a moment to waste, so let's get to it. Our lead story today is Greece. Now, as many of you already know, Greek voters handed power to anti-austerity party Syriza on Sunday, which won a decisive victory in the national elections. Syriza's main objective is overhauling the bitter economic reforms, specifically austerity, that Greece has had to suffer through since the recession. Now, since first seeking a bailout in 2010, Greece has initiated broad economic overhauls and cutbacks in order to help mend its public finances following 6 years of deep recession. That said, those cutbacks have come at a cost. Some 25% of Greeks remain jobless, while a quarter of all households live close to the poverty line. Some children have taken to dropping out of school and assuming odd jobs in order to generate cash for their families. So it's not a very pretty situation in Greece right now. Syriza has promised to change all of that, though. They have pledged immediate relief to the poor, rolling back unpopular taxes and negotiating a debt write-down with the country's creditors in order to free up spending on social programs. The party's leader, Alexis Tsipras, has been sworn in as Greece's new prime minister on Monday. Now, Tsipras has promised to renegotiate Greece's massive bailout agreements, but has vowed not to take any unilateral action against lenders from other Eurozone countries. Now, it's been reported that the Syriza party is planning to appoint economist and boom-bust regular Yanis Varoufakis as Greece's next finance minister. And if you've ever watched this show, you know that a radical, hard-nosed socialist Yanis is not. Now, while Syriza outrightly rejects EU-imposed austerity, their top pick for finance minister is a reasonable and thoughtful man. It will now be up to the Syriza-led government to negotiate some sort of debt relief, and whether that be in the form of a deal to provide further leeway on repayments, debt restructuring, or outright debt forgiveness remains to be seen. But I do trust that Mr. Varoufakis is the man for the job. To get his take on Greece, I was joined earlier by Marshall Arabak. Now, Marshall is Director of Institutional Partnerships at the Institute for New Economic Thinking and a research associate at the Levy Economics Institute. In this segment, I first asked Marshall what the Syriza party winning in Greece means for Europe. Take a look at what he had to say.
Well, it certainly makes it more interesting.
That was Marshall Arabak, Director of Institutional Partnerships at the Institute for New Economic Thinking. Time now for a very quick break, but stick around because when we return, Richard Werner will be on the show. The German economist sat down with me earlier to talk about central banking and quantitative easing, a subject that he certainly knows a thing or two about as he coined the term quantitative easing. Then in today's Big Deal, Edward Harrison and I are continuing the Syriza discussion. So what is the EU after and what is Syriza after? And more importantly, can they work out a deal? That's the big question. Ed's going to break it down for us. And remember, you can see all segments featured in today's show on YouTube at youtube.com/boombustrt and on Hulu at hulu.com/boom-bust. Now, as we go to break, here are a look at some of your closing numbers at the bell. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the show. Up now is my interview with Richard Werner. Richard is Director of International Development and the founding director of the Center for Banking, Finance and Sustainable Development at the University of Southampton and England. Now, in this segment, I first asked Richard if central banks work the way that they would have us believe that they do in economics textbooks. Here's what he had to say.
I don't think so.
Interest rates are the key variable for central banks. So if you want to slow an economy down, you raise rates, and if you want to boost, you lower rates. That's basically how I get it. But when you look at the empirical evidence, is that really how it works, though?
It cannot. It cannot be the way it works. Now, if that's true, and that is what the data are telling us on almost any country, any time period in the last 50 years when I checked, that means interest rates cannot be.
Jardine Fleming, in the mid-1990s, you coined the term quantitative easing. We hear that term a lot today. Now, Richard, what is the quantitative easing that you described for Japan in the 1990s, and how does it differ from what is being dubbed as QE today?
Yeah, I think this leads on very nicely from the.
So is the ECB doing quantitative easing?
Unfortunately, not the type of quantitative easing I was recommending, and you will have noticed, and many of the viewers will have noticed, that Japan in the past 20 years has not actually recovered, and that's which you could easily do.
That was Richard Werner, founding director of the Center for Banking, Finance and Sustainable Development at the University of Southampton and England. Time now for today's Big Deal. Big Deal time with Edward Harrison. It feels good to be back in this seat. Really good.
It's good to have you back.
Stuff.
I like it.
And today we're discussing Syriza in Greece and basically the negotiations between the EU and Syriza. It's going to be a lot of drama, I think. So, Ed, can you first explain which each side, each party essentially is angling for here, the EU and Syriza, a.k.a. Greece?
Yeah, so we have one slide to present on the one here. What the Syriza party wants to do, they want to increase.
First of all, you got the hairball. It's the winter, we all have it. I was just doing that before, so feel free to get a sip of water. But before you do, I want to ask you, is there room for negotiation in any of those aims? What do you think? Is there any room here or no?
I think there is a mutually agreeable outcome, but they're going to have to pedal back on both sides from what they're, to reduce austerity, basically. And the other side, they're looking to continue it. On one side, they're saying no debt reduction, and the other side, they're saying we want debt relief. They're not saying outright that we want. It's not great.
And Ed, here's the big question. What is the outcome here if the Troika balks? Because a lot of us think that could happen. The Troika could be, so what do you think there?
So if the Troika balks, the
problem.
Yeah, so I think that the ECB is, that their trump card.
Interesting, but Ed, is Greece a worst case scenario, or is this just a one-off special thing? What do you think? Like, are they the worst of the lot or no?
I think that they are the worst of the lot, but it's not a one-off scenario. Greece. It's not because that Greece is in a dramatically worse position. It's because they've been treated.
About Greece in the Eurozone periphery, without the Eurozone periphery, all about.
We'll take a look at Switzerland. It would be exactly the same thing. Without the periphery, it would be a huge upward.
That's all for now, but we love hearing from you, so please check out our Facebook page, facebook.com/BoomBustRT, and please also tweet at us at Erin8, at EdwardNH. From all of us here at Boom Bust, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.